When I joined Halcyon Loop, the rule was simple. We ship, then we shout. Dax, my teammate, loved the shouting part. He called himself our culture engine and called me patch notes when I flagged edge cases. Don't take it personally, he'd say, tapping the whiteboard with a dry erase, as if the plastic could bless me into thicker skin. The office smelled like burnt coffee and citrus cleaner. The badge reader beeped whenever someone forgot their lanyard, an off-key metronome for our sprints. I wrote most of the shareable scaffolding, the onboarding microcopy, the UX text, the launch deck our CEO kept borrowing for investor intros. Dax would hop into my Figma, rearrange a color block, and then joke in stand-up that he'd rescued the narrative. Nova and Ezra filmed TikToks around our desks, capturing Dax's running gags about my novel-length Jira tickets. They added sound effects pop, whoosh, canned laughter, and cut my face out of the frame with that tidy Gen Z confidence. When I asked to attach a byline to the launch deck, Dax grinned. Credits are for movies. Startups are a team sport. He nudged my coffee mug aside with the back of his hand to make room for his laptop, the gesture small enough to be a misunderstanding and big enough to be a message. By the end of month 2, the slogan had drifted. We didn't ship, then shout. We shouted, then maybe shipped. I started saving things the way you set aside cash in envelopes, a copy of the doc tree, a screen capture of version history, little proofs that work had hands. Founders Week turned our open office into a runway. Halcyon hosted a micro-conference with a rented stage between the fern wall and the espresso bar. The air tasted like steam and milk, the machine hissing the way a radiator complains. Dax pitched a fun opener for his session on our new scheduling feature, a live roast of internal processes. Our COO frowned. Dax promised light. He named his deck Ship or Cry, and, to warm the room, riffed about my panic punctuation in QA notes. Nova and Ezra flanked the risers, filming in portrait and landscape, 2 lenses ready to harvest reactions. People laughed because microphones give permission. He pulled up a screenshot of the onboarding flow, the one I'd written, and credited House Elves. Then he ran a mock training, where he pretended to hand me a mic and snatched it back. We'll let the talent speak, he said to the room, eyes cutting to me, a line I'd heard before in a different company and promised I'd never hear again. When he played a sped-up screen recording of me drafting copy, the laughter edged mean, the kind that makes you hot under your collarbone. My palms picked up the faint grit from the cardboard pizza boxes stacked near the stage. I smiled for the benefit of the investors in the second row, and felt that smile like a bruise. After his set, he clapped my shoulder. Content, he said, and my name became material. The aftershock arrived as it always does, privately, with blame. Dax slacked me that I'd killed the energy by not playing along. Nova DM'd, it's just bits, don't overthink. Ezra posted a conference story tagging Halcyon Loop with a boomerang of Dax fake crying into a hoodie sleeve. The captions called me patch notes again. Balloon font, glitter. My phone thrummed against the desk in a nervous little dance. I stared at the wall of fern leaves and felt the office HVAC mumble above my head. Dax CC'd the CEO on an email summarizing his session outcomes, linking to my deck with the version title stripped, the attribution block deleted. He wrote that, we proved copy is easy, mindset is hard. The line lodged like a pit in my throat. I typed, deleted, typed again, kept it short. Please restore the attribution slide per our template. He replied all, we should reduce friction for the audience. A beat later, don't be precious, we're all Halcyon. I rubbed at a coffee ring until it feathered into nothing and imagined what it would feel like to be invisible by choice rather than by design. Ezra sent a sticker clown face, confetti. The espresso machine hissed another complaint. I checked my version history and watched my own name flicker off the edge of the screen. Receipts don't argue, they stack. I opened the shared doc history for the launch deck and exported the edit log as a PDF. Dates, times, every sentence that started in my cursor and ended in someone else's brag. Then I pulled the calendar item Dax had made for Ship or Cry Prep, the one he'd invited Nova and Ezra to with the description, need punchier jokes. Thinking live coaching moment. He had forgotten to remove me when he cloned a series. My inbox held the calendar mail CCs like fossils. The event thread included our COO, asking to keep things respectful, and Dax replying, don't worry, I'll sand the edges, followed by a smiley face with sunglasses. In Slack, a thread from last week showed Dax telling a PM to just change her copy and push. A polite PM had responded, per policy, please credit in the deck. Dax, policy is a suggestion. Vibes are mandatory. I stitched the fragments together into a neat timeline and filed the folder in my drive under launch acknowledgements. Then I walked to the tiny phone room that smelled like old drywall and eucalyptus and called HR. A calm voice named Seraphine said to bring sequence, not adjectives. We'll keep this inside the rails, she said. Do you want a public correction or a private consequence? I said I wanted truth where the lie landed on the stage. We drafted without flair. Seraphine asked the COO to add a 1-minute all-hands culture minute before Dax's encore session on day 2. ET reserved the projector. Marcus from facilities tested the HDMI, and its fan whirred a white noise that made my pulse slow. We built 4 slides. Attribution in practice, template screenshot with a deleted credit block, collaborative artifacts, grayscale snippets from the doc history, prep descriptions, cropped calendar mail CCs with Dax's punchier jokes line, and policy reminder, the paragraph that promised to name contributors and avoid onstage coaching. No adjectives. No borders. Seraphine rehearsed the lines like a pilot reading checklists. We give credit. We do not stage surprise training. We keep humor consent-based. I asked legal if it was okay to show names. Legal said yes, because the materials were internal, and the event was ours. We would blur investor faces if any cutaways appeared. I went home that night to a quiet apartment that smelled like lemon dish soap. The city murmured outside, and I let it. I laid out my lanyard on the counter, the woven nylon ruff against my palm, a reminder that my job wasn't to be agreeable, it was to be accurate. Day two's first espresso hissed open the morning, and the floor vibrated with wheels of rental chairs. You could hear the light rattle of badges against zippers as people filed in. Dax was already on stage, sleeves rolled, mic taped to his cheek. He tried out one last gag about patch notes filing a bug against laughter. The COO cut him off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before we continue, a brief culture minute, she said. The projector warmed. The fan hummed. The slide landed. Attribution in practice. There was my credit block, missing from Dax's version, present in ours. Next slide. Collaborative artifacts. The grayscale timeline where my cursor birthed lines he later moved. Next. Prep descriptions. The calendar clone. The email reply with punchier jokes under Dax's name, and the COO's reminder to be respectful. The policy paragraph followed. Our company's quiet backbone. No voice trembled. No one said, gotcha. The espresso smell hung sweet in the air, a strange kindness. From the front row, an investor leaned back, as if the oxygen had changed. Nova lowered her phone. Ezra stopped recording mid-swipe. Dax laughed once, then twice, like a radio scanning past empty stations. We good? He asked. The COO looked at the screen and said, now we are. You can feel a room reset. The clapping that followed wasn't for me. It was for the idea that work would be named. Dax's encore session lost its edges. He avoided roasts. He avoided my slides. He avoided eye contact. During QA, a PM asked how he sourced copy. He said, we collaborate. The word landed dull. After the session, Seraphine invited Dax to the small conference room by the plants. The glass made sounds like polite knocks when the door closed. I went to refill the napkin holders and caught my reflection in the espresso machine. Hair a little wild, eyes not. Nova drifted over, phone face down for once. I didn't know he removed credits, she said, which was true from a certain angle. Ezra stood behind her, picking at the edge of a cardboard sleeve until it frayed. At the snack table, someone's bracelet chimed as she reached for almonds, a bright bell in a low morning. The COO sent a company-wide note. Attribution is not optional. Consent applies to humor. Questions welcome offline. When I sat, my chair didn't creak. The building sounded like it had taken one full breath and finished it. By afternoon, the math arrived. Dax was removed as session lead for the remainder of the week and placed on investigatory leave pending a conduct review. His quarterly bonus was paused. His admin rights to shared artifacts revoked. Legal flagged 3 investor decks where my copy shipped under his name. Our CEO sent amendments and apologies. Seraphine scheduled training on consent and credit, not with swag, but with a checklist and a sign-in sheet. Nova and Ezra turned over the conference footage. Half of it was unusable without the jokes. Turns out you can film a lot and say very little. HR offered me a formal title bump and an acknowledgement line on our public docs. I accepted the line and asked to interview for the bump like anyone else. They blinked, then nodded, and the respect felt better than the gesture. When I walked past the fern wall, the green looked less like decoration and more like proof we could keep living after someone tried to build a brand out of our backs. The smell of cleaner had faded to something neutral. The badge reader beeped once, cheerful by accident. Dax's desk plant drooped in the afternoon light. Nobody made a joke of it. Stories surfaced. A designer forwarded a thread where Dax had polished her work into invisibility. She'd saved it and never known what to do. An SDR showed a slide where his language got copy-pasted without credit, then softened until the meaning melted. People apologized not to me for laughing, but to themselves for doing it anyway. The CTO added an acknowledgements section to our template. It looked small and felt big. Nova DM'd a genuine sorry and asked if I wanted to review the next social caption. Yes, I said, and sent 3 edits and a thank you. Ezra deleted clips where I was the punchline and replaced them with a video of our QA suite catching a gnarly bug. The screen all green checkmarks, a confession that we've always been more interesting in the work than around it. The office smell settled into a truce between coffee and nothing. On my walk home, the city's river wind had the clean bite of aluminum. When a bus exhaled at the curb, it sounded like a tired giant choosing not to crush anything. I slept without an alarm and woke up before it anyway. The next week, Dax asked to talk. He waited by the espresso machine like a tourist at a fountain, empty cup in his hands. He did not say sorry, exactly. He said he never meant harm, that bits build morale, that everyone knows the credits are communal. The machine hissed in the middle of his sentence and turned the rest into steam. We ship, then we shout, I said, reminding us of who we claimed to be, and we name who shipped. He glanced at the fern wall as if it might tell him a different ending. I put 2 sugars in my mug, felt their edges like tiny gravel, and watched them dissolve. You turned my work into your stage, I added, calm as inventory. He opened his mouth to bargain and found no audience. The badge reader beeped behind him. Someone laughed at something that had nothing to do with us. I picked up my laptop and left him beside the machine, the smell of espresso sweet, and not for him. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask for a verdict. I kept the simplest sentence and offered it to the air. Credit isn't a favor,